Less than 5 minutes after being introduced to Sakuko Igarashi, she is killed unceremoniously by the Shiramoku. Shiramuku? We literally know nothing about this girl, and she's just wholesale slaughtered out of nowhere right in front of us. And worst of all, she's confirmed to be the only character who dies no matter what. So, through the entire 3 playthroughs that I did, one of my biggest questions had been, what the hell did Sakuko do to deserve this? Well, it only took 3 playthroughs, but I figured it out. And I get it. I disagree with the decision to kill her, but I get it. So to understand why Sakuko was killed, we need to understand a bit more about the history of Ebisugaoka. I know this seems strange, but I promise it'll make sense once I'm done. So needless to say, from this point forward, there's going to be a lot of spoilers for Silent Hill F. But while we're right here, go ahead and like and subscribe if you want to see more theatrical bullshit like this from me. Because I like filming outside, so if you want to see more of this kind of shit, show me you want some more.
Hinako! Hinako, 助けて! 助けて! 行かないで! 一人にしないで! 待って! 行かないで! ずっと一緒って約束したじゃん! ギラギラまだ!
During the Sacred Sword quest, we learned that Ebisugaoka was a hidden village that originally comprised of soldiers of the Taira clan, who fled a war in order to survive. When they established their village, they vowed an oath to exact revenge on the Minamoto clan and restore Clan Taira to its former glory. They also buried the sword of their deceased leader at the base of the great tree that they believed protected the land. As the legend goes, the sword's animosity to the Minamoto clan continued to grow, so to prevent the hatred from the sword tainting the land, they created a sacred barrier around the sword using the Jizo statues around town as anchor. And because they had fled the Genpei War, they could not engage with trade with any of the nearby settlements. They were completely isolated from the larger society of the region, and as such, there was no way for them to purchase or trade for anything new, and as a result, a new form of worship began in the area. Treating old tools with respect and reusing broken and unwanted tools was seen as a virtue, and at the end of a tool's lifespan, they would offer it to a god who they thought would be pleased with such an offering. This custom in the area would become known as the Sukomogami faith, and its primary place of worship was at the Senninsugi Shrine, which was located at the base of the great tree. Now in the Edo period, lightning had struck the divine tree, which had led people to believe the spiritual power of the tree had been lost, so they turned their worship to the next oldest objects in the area, which to their knowledge was the Inari statues. And as such, the people began to worship the Inari-sama. By this time, however, the sacred sword had been completely forgotten, despite being buried at the base of the tree at Senninsugi Shrine. Now, a bit of foreshadowing here. Sakuko's family were the last caretakers of the new Senninsugi Shrine. The old one had been largely abandoned after the fire from the lightning strike on the great tree. So the villagers of Ebisugaoka fused their Tsukumogami faith into their newly established Inari faith, once again making a religion wholly unique to their village. Now, according to another legend, once upon a time a water dragon that resided at Ebisugaoka had spewed poison into the atmosphere so that the people would not approach. Then the Inari-sama had subdued that dragon and made the land hospitable again. It is established in a note we find in-game that despite the time between the establishment of the new Inari faith and present day, 1960s Ebisugaoka, that there are still elderly members of the village who still worship the old Tsukumogami, but do so at the Inari shrine since they are all much closer than making the trek to the Senitsugi shrine. For context, as you travel the town, Inari shrines all over. They're the little fox shrines with little huts. You see them they're everywhere. There's one outside the school. There's one in Hinako's neighborhood. They're everywhere. Sakuko's family has served the shrine for many generations. Her father served as head priest, as did her grandfather, and likely a few generations back, starting at the founding of the village. By the time Sakuko's father was ready to leave the shrine, the last of the practitioners of the original Tsukumogami faith had all but stopped coming to Senitsugi, and as a result, Sakuko's father had hung up his robes and had taken an office job in a nearby city. Sakuko's grandfather had told her that when he steps down as head priest, that he will close the shrine. But Sakuko was incredibly proud of her lineage as caretakers and leaders of the shrine, and vowed that she would restore Senitsugi not only to its former glory and bolster the faith of those in town, but would restore the original Senitsugi shrine in full as well. Now, while she was satisfied with helping as a Miko, she was very devout in her worship, and as she claimed, she could hear how the gods wept for the Senitsugi shrine. So this brings us to Sakuko herself. No doubt being this engrossed in a religion or faith can make someone weird, but Sakuko's devotion went further. She claimed gods would communicate with her, and she could also decipher the will of the gods. She, on several occasions, claims that gods and other apparitions would visit her dreams. Now, Sakuko at some point had told Hinako there is a huge supernatural disturbance around Ebisugaoka. An ancient god was furious that their followers had been stolen from them and is out for revenge. See, now we're getting to the meat of it. We're starting to get to the why. You feel it brewing, you know? Additionally, she had told Hinako on occasion about the original Senitsugi shrine and how at the foot of the burned tree was an ancient buried artifact. Not that Hinako would do anything about it at the time, nor would Sakuko. They're fucking children, you know? Hinako still thought Sakuko was strange, however. Despite this, her and Hinako were best friends. While we only spent a short time with Sakuko, her journal entries tell us a good bit about her, as well as some of the scattered notes around town. In her journal, we learn that she is very aware that people think she's strange, even Hinako. And like most kids her age, she is of two minds about it. On one hand, she's quietly resentful of all her classmates for treating her differently, and on the other hand, she's proud of her strangeness. In her first diary entry, she describes her fear of the dark and how it reminds her of how alone she is. And if we take this entry at face, she also believes that Hinako makes fun of her behind her back, and in return say that people also make fun of Hinako, showing us that she is more than aware of how people may view her. Her fear of dark comes into play during a gameplay moment as Hinako locks her memory of Sakuko in a dark room, left to be forgotten and alone. of her diary entries are like this, where she exposes a piece of herself while also tearing down Hinako and her classmates. One of the journals, which I think is the most significant entry we find, is about the purification ritual that needs to occur to restore the sacred sword of Ebisugaoka, which is very important to get the true ending of the game. Her last journal entry is stating that she recognizes that she was being a jealous, selfish child in regards to Hinako, and she apologizes for calling her a traitor. To which, we come to our first interaction with Sakuko in the game, where she calls Hinako a traitor in what feels like an out-of-left-field interaction, which I will explain near the end, because it's not the most important, but it's a question that I had, and I wanted to know. I had questions. So in the next scene, we can see all the children interact with each other, and you can instantly see the chemistry and love that they have for one another. But once the fog rolls in, Sakuko is killed immediately.
私なんかあったかなねえ、ひなこ。じゃあ私が借りてる500円も返さなくていいよね。
サクコ利子つけて返すとか言ってなかった？
言ってないよ。証文あんなら出してみろ。
いいこと聞いた。これからはサクコに貸すとき消しゴムであっても証文書かせるから。
そんな意地悪言わないでよ。ねえねえ、昨日のラジオ聞いた？聞いた。でも途中で寝ちゃった。ひなこ？
あ、ごめん。何？
裏切りも。
And for the rest of the game, we're stuck with Shu and Rinko. When I did my first run, I was shell-shocked the whole way through over this interaction. I couldn't get over it. Why did she have to die? What the hell did Sakuko do? Then, on a second playthrough, I found this note. Ritual is held. The Iragashi clan, last descendants. Now, this letter, it's not stored in notes. It's just a random string of words found in the library in the dark place or whatever, the dark palace, whatever. And you don't store it in your notes, you don't store it in your journal, it's there. It's the only way to find this note and to read it at any point is to be there in the library. This note can mean any number of things. But due to the nature of things, I think it is an implicit notice that the last of the Iragashi clan had been slain, and the ritual that the Tsuneki family were doing would hold. To recap, the Tsuneki family are devout practitioners of the Inari faith, so much so that they are favored by the god personally. The Inari god often takes host in a member of the family and claims a bride through them. So we know now the history of the town's faith and that the fox god had killed Sakuko. But why? Sakuko is the last remaining Igarashi descendant who had interest in the Senitsugi shrine. So much so, she wished to restore the Tsukumogami faith and was familiar with the region's legends. She would likely have found the sacred sword and purified it, which would shatter the Inari faith, all but destroying the fox god's power in the region. The Tsuneki's power in the region was directly tied to their favor in the Inari's eyes, and their empire would likely collapse as well. We can also see that in the fox whets its tail ending, removing the fox and not purifying the sword leaves the town unprotected from the water dragon of legend, and it spews gases from the onsen that surround the area, causing many townfolk to flee and killing those who don't. So through the purification ritual, we know that the Tsukumogami god will continue to protect the region when the Inari is expelled. The Inari wants to be the only god in the area, and by killing Sakuko, the legend of the sword and the truth about Senitsugi dies with her, Her grandfather had retired, and her father has no desires to restore the temple. She was literally the last person in line that could stop the Inari and the Tsuneki family. So she had to die. And no matter what choices we make, she will always die. We will always snuff out her memory in darkness. But thanks to Sakuko's help, we can purify the sword after we find it, which can save Hinako and Ebisugaoka. Sakuko was a real one. She was a ride or die for Hinako. So, why did she call Hinako a traitor? This one's actually really simple. We can see in her journal entries that she wanted nothing more than to just be around Hinako at all costs. She hated when Hinako did her own thing. For instance, during PE class, when the students were made to walk track, Hinako would always go hard and enter track star mode, leaving Sakuko to walk with Rinko, which on its own isn't bad, but Sakuko wanted to walk with Hinako. Sakuko wanted them to do everything together, have boyfriends, walk together, get married together. Mind you, as far as I know, this is all platonically. I'm sure there's a case to be made that Sakuko was in love with Hinako, but I'm not here to make that case, as compelling as it might be. Sakuko just wanted to be around Hinako, so by the time we start the game, it is already known to everyone in Hinako's life that she is to be wed. So when Sakuko sees her, she calls her a traitor for running off to get married and leaving her behind, breaking the promise they had made to each other to stick around. And because Hinako never voiced to her friends outside of Shu that she didn't want this, all anyone knew was that she was happy with this decision. And this was a betrayal to Sakuko. But in the end, we can see in her last journal entry, Sakuko realized she was being unreasonable, and her jealousy and bitterness was a result of the selfishness of a child. And she apologizes to Hinako posthumously, but still, of all the questions I had while playing Silent Hill F, why did Sakuko have to die was always at the top of my list, followed closely by, why'd she call Hinako a traitor? But it took multiple playthroughs, and I'm glad I was able to answer these questions, and I hope this answers it for you. Now, if you've made it this far, take a moment and like and subscribe, and if you're watching on mobile, give me a hype. It would be much appreciated. Next up, we are going to dive into the bitter jealousy and self-destruction of Rinko. So I hope to see you there.
Sakuko?
ひなこ。助けに来たよ。
サクコ？どうして？
今の
何なの？
もちろん嫌だよ。
サクコ、どうして？
今の
何なの？
どうして戦わなくちゃいけないの？
ひなこが来る場所じゃない。
何を言ってるかわからないよ。 ってるの。ひなこが心から実はここにいないこと。
怪我はないか。大丈夫だ。これし期待して。急に律令のごとく動かなく。つきものの分際でここへ踏み入ろうとおるかな。
今のは
君についてきた汚れだろう。もう失せた。安心していい。属性に生きる以上、汚れがつくことは仕方がない。払えばいいだけのことだ。行こう。